Hello again, I am Blunty, and I, like probably most of you, am a consumer, which is a lovely dehumanizing term we have just come to accept for ourselves as living in part of this sort of capitalist-driven society, which is increasingly more fueled by nightmares than any practical concerns, and we just get around that by buying things to distract us so we feel better about the horrific society in which we live, because we don't have the power to do anything about it, because the people who have the power to do anything about it are the people with all the money, and they keep getting more money, so much money they don't have it, there's no way they could possibly spend it, and they're not spending it in any way to make the world better except just hoarding the wealth for themselves. And what are you going to do? I mean, aside from buying a new video game to distract yourself from the, oh god, the loop has started again. Started out rather more dramatically than I intended to there. Kind of got on a little ramp and couldn't slam on the brakes on the intro there. We'll start again. Hi, I'm Blunty. We're going to talk about video games and NFTs and Ubisoft today, because I saw the news this morning that Ubisoft have made a statement to the effect of they're wanting to fold NFTs into their future games. And if you don't know what an NFT is, lucky you. Fantastic that you've avoided the idiotic conversation going around about this horrifying concept of just pretend stuff being worth. I don't like talking about cryptocurrencies or NFTs or anything like that. Not because of the concepts around them aren't interesting technologically or sociologically speaking, but because the kinds of people involved, deeply involved, passionate about this stuff tend to be the same kind of people who are deeply passionate about wine and things like that. You ever spoken to a wine snob who just their entire life revolves around, their special interest is wine? Well, the people whose special interest is cryptocurrencies and NFTs are like that, except worse. They are the most terrible, tedious, annoying, frustrating, achingly boring people to talk to. So I try and avoid it. Not today. So folding NFTs into video games is something that Valve themselves have said, no. If you want to do that, you're not publishing your game on our platform. Which, thank you, Steam. Fantastic. There are so many other things you could do to clean up your storefront, but nice hill to die on, I guess. Alternatively, Epic Games said, hey, if you want to do NFT stuff, come to our store because we don't give a fuck. I was trying to think of a way to talk about the situation, so I was doing a little bit of research, trying to find an angle, trying to find a frame of reference that would work to make this all make sense and kind of articulate why I think this is a horrible idea that is horrendously bad for consumers, for companies, for gamers, for the environment, for everything, because NFTs are horrific. But then I came across a 20-post long Twitter thread from a guy called Max Nichols, who works at Bungie as a game designer, specifically, let's hover over here, specifically senior tech design at Bungie. So the guy has a little more authority than I do when it comes to talking about this stuff and how it affects game design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you this thread in a more digestible form, because some of you like to listen to things, some of you like to read things. I'll link it below if you want to read and respond to it yourself and ask him questions about what he's talking about. Or there's my comment section as well if you want to have a more casual conversation about it. Would appreciate if you do that, by the way. And the thumbs and the bells and psh. So, Max says, Mr. Nichols says, NFTs are harmful to games. That's how he starts. We already know that they're environmentally devastating, extract wealth into the hands of bad actors, and are mostly scams or worse. And he's right. Most of the NFT stuff going around right now are people just jumping on the bandwagon and scamming, flat out scamming people out of money, especially NFTs tied to gamer culture. And the part where he says they're environmentally devastating, well, that has to do with how NFTs are tied into the blockchain, same as cryptocurrency, and a lot of that blockchain mining stuff is incredibly energy expensive, which is doing massive damage to the environment, because not all of our energy comes from clean sources yet, does it? And I know what you're going to say already. Well, there are some energy efficient ways to do NFTs, but even if this particular NFT system was perfectly energy efficient, even carbon neutral, carbon minus even, it still wouldn't address the rest of the issues. So let's keep going. There are two designs I've seen pitched for using NFTs in games. Number one, to give players unique items with tracked history. And NFT is quite good at that because, well, that's the way the blockchain works. Number 2, to enable play-to-earn models where players can earn items and resell them, plus various unworkable ideas floated by the people who don't know development, obviously. To the first, and most notably obvious issue, neither of these things require or are made easier or better by building them with NFT and blockchain tech. NFTs provide no specific benefit. He's talking about the part where he's saying provide gamers with unique items and track them. We literally already have that in lots of games. You don't need NFTs or blockchain for that. You can have, well, actually, I'll keep reading and he explains it. Unique items are unique because the game has systems to make them unique, usually random generators. It doesn't come from the NFT. The ownership or gameplay history that could be tracked with a normal database, not requiring an energy-hungry blockchain setup. Play-to-earn models require the ability for players to transfer ownership of items or resources in exchange for cash or other goods of real-world value, and for the game to respect that transfer of ownership. This, again, already happens in games and has for decades. Some examples: the Steam trading cards, of course, one of the oldest examples, I think. WoW gold sellers selling MMO accounts on eBay, the Diablo 2 real money auction house, EVE Online time cards. A common refrain is, "Oh, but we control what we buy instead of the business." That is absurd, says Max. Your NFT only exists and only has value in a context, the game, that is owned and controlled by a business. It could go away or change at no notice. Best case, someone finds a way to implement blockchain tech plus NFTs that doesn't have the carbon footprint, doesn't accept payment from cryptocurrencies, and after all that effort led them to a player experience that could have already been built anyway, and in fact has been. Outcome: no positive impact. But damningly, these things, with or without NFTs, fundamentally make the actual experience of gaming worse. Two main reasons: business models intruding on creative decisions, as we've seen over the years as we get more and more of this microtransaction bullshittery in our games. It's making the games demonstrably worse, especially egregious in some of Ubisoft's own examples, especially when you look at things like the Assassin's Creed series, which has been hammered by its use of XP boosters and crap like that for real money. Extrinsic motivation depresses intrinsic enjoyment. Business models have always had an impact on game design, of course. Arcade games needed frequent points of harsh failure. That's very true. Arcade games were extremely difficult by design because their purpose was to make you die often enough that you want to feed more coins in because, I can do better next time. I can do better next time. That's where we get the lives and credits system from in games today, even though we're not sort of directly feeding money. Well, some games are directly feeding money into it for every life. Hi, mobile gamers. How are your pay for reduced timers going? Subscription MMOs needed to stretch out playtime to make people keep subscribing because they need to keep going because they keep going. $50 to $70 boxed products have always had various audience expectations around playtime, graphics, and genre. And that's where we get into the people who sort of try and quantify a game for, dollar per hour playtime and then ridiculous calculations like that to find out whether or not the game is worth the price. Silly. But in the day-to-day details of design work, business models impose lesser or greater degrees. Designers working on a full-priced box game in the 90s had one priority: making design decisions. Make the player experience as good as possible in the time they had. Most games you make purchasing decision outside the context of the game in real-life mindsets. Business models like gacha games or NFT games use the psychology of game design to sell things to players with time or money within the controlled context of the game. Day-to-day details of design are now extremely relevant to the business. Instead of "make a good game," in quotes, standing alone as the main goal, now they have to balance two equal competing goals: make a good game and convince players to buy. What do you think is going to have a better player experience? Max asks. Adoy, rhetorically. A, the game made with the sole purpose of being as good as it can be, or B, the same game where they also had to simultaneously upsell you on microtransactions. This is an argument we've been having for a decade now. There's nothing new going on in that question, just a salient point to make in the middle of this. Side note, there are some ways that these intruding into the game business models can improve the experience. Free-to-play creates a higher player count for matchmaking. The novel business constraints force innovation. It funds the game's existence at all, and lower barrier of entry. And he's true. I don't mind microtransactions and hunt passes and whatever, seasonal passes and stuff in free-to-play games. I've held Dauntless aloft as a good example of doing that. It's not egregious. It's enough carrot on the stick to get you to reach for that microtransaction every now and again. You don't need to do it to play it. You don't need to do it every month to play it, but it ticks over and helps the game keep existing. And being free-to-play, it keeps the game easy to access. I like that. Phew, Max continues. Last topic. First, some psych terms. Extrinsic motivation, an external reward that motivates someone to do something like money, fame, or validation. Intrinsic enjoyment, when someone enjoys an activity for its own sake. Research shows that if someone intrinsically enjoys an activity and you offer extrinsic motivation, a reward for it, it will reduce their intrinsic enjoyment. Isn't that interesting? In other words, if someone pays you to do a thing you enjoy, you will probably enjoy it less. There's that old adage about, hey, do what you love for a living and you'll never work a day in your life. Utter bullshit, by the way. This isn't clear cut. People experience rewards differently and are motivated in different ways by different things. For some, even in-game loot systems can act like extrinsic rewards. But paying to play versus paying to get paid, is as clear cut as it gets. So, in summary, NFTs are environmentally and socially harmful. NFT games pitches are either impossible or equally good without NFTs. Embedding earning/selling of NFTs into games distorts every game design decision. And he means every game design decision, because it's all got to accommodate that. And finally, most people enjoy play-to-earn games less, just psychologically speaking. And to finish up here, he quotes one of his own tweets he made a few days prior to this thread. If NFTs had any actual utility, people would advertise that. As in, the NFTs would have utility. But they do not. So the only way to advertise NFTs is to say, look, we're using NFTs for something that already functioned before NFTs. Give us money for it. And that's exactly what NFTs are when you really boil it down to it. It's a grift. It's an absolute grift. I think I made my point, and I think Max made my point for me as well. In fact, he did it before me, so I'm just repeating his point and saying it's my own. But it was my own. He just said it far more eloquently and with an amount of passion and legitimacy, being a game designer for a major game publisher or a developer, Bungie. So, all I can do is say, yeah, Max, I agree. Thank you to the rest of you watching. I am Blunty. Thank you as always. Thank you again to the patrons, since we're talking about giving people money for nothing. These guys do it every damn month, and I really love them for it. Thank you, guys.